I'm John Batchelor. Malcolm Hoenlein of the Conference of Presidents continues with me, and we turn to discussing the president's speech and the effects of that speech on Friends of Israel in the United States. We're joined by Dr. Tevi Troy, a senior fellow at the Hudson Institute. He's also a senior fellow at the Potomac Institute. He served as a senior White House aide in the George W. Bush administration. He's the author most recently in Tablet magazine of an article that I go right to, because Malcolm, I have learned these many years in New York, watch Ed Koch, okay? Watch Ed Koch very carefully. This is a man who decided single-handedly to rescue Bill Clinton in 1998, and he did. So, and Ed Koch's support or not support for a president is significant, Republican or Democrat. Tevi, a very good evening to you. Ed Koch has been, what you'd have to say, patient with the Obama administration, but an article that he publishes most recently in Real Clear Politics, I believe, he has lost patience with the president himself. How so? And what does this mean for Friends of Israel in the United States? Good evening, Tevi.
Good evening, and thanks for having me on. It's clear that Ed Koch wanted to like Obama. He endorsed him in 2008 when the election was still up for grabs, and it wasn't clear where Koch was going to go. And Koch, as you said, is a savvy political operator. He knows where the winds are blowing, and he usually is right in his presidential picks. When he deserts the Democratic Party, and he is a Democrat, he tends to do it. In every case he's done it, it has been in a case where the Republican went on to win. So Koch liked Obama for a long time, but he's described the process of falling out of love with Obama over the last couple of months, and then the speech that you refer to, John, was kind of the breaking point. And Koch could no longer stick with Obama, and he said he is now unlikely to vote for Obama in 2012. I think that's bad news for Obama.
Yeah, Ed Koch is a guru in New York still. It's quite remarkable, and still Mr. Mayor. You heard the speech and the comments that were made afterwards that attesting to the fact that, in fact, the president didn't say anything different than previous presidents. You study presidents and Middle East policy. How did what the president had said on his first speech, in fact, differ from where previous presidents came out on the 67 lines?
Well, first of all, I mean, everybody focused on the 67 borders line. He just kind of threw it out there. And it's true that there's been other American presidents who've said we'll probably end up with those 67 borders. The Israelis think we'll probably end up with something along the lines of the 67 borders with swaps. But by saying it, and the way Obama said it, was he was kind of setting it in stone and saying the negotiations start there. And the Palestinians are very savvy operators too, and they tend to pocket concessions. And if you start the conversation from 67 borders plus, then the question goes, what do we get on top of that? And I think that's why it was a strategic and tactical mistake for Obama to do it. But he was very soft on the question of whether Hamas is a terrorist organization. He said they're an organization that has committed terrorist acts. And that's different than saying it's a terrorist organization. He also was talking about this issue of, President Bush has said Hamas must no longer do these things. The Palestinians must do certain things. And Obama said it in much softer language, which was, it would be better if they didn't do those things. It's not a good situation if they do those things. But he didn't say they must not do this. And because he softened things, and because he just dropped that 67 borders thing, it was sort of a gut punch to the American Jewish community and supporters of Israel. And it's important to recognize here that it's not just the Jews who are a relatively small percentage of the overall electorate, but there are a lot of pro-Israel people out there, and a lot of people vote on this issue. The Israel thing is a marker, it's a test of someone's character, and Obama seems to be failing that test.
So are you saying that the mistake was like what he did about the freeze? By putting this out, it becomes then, I mean, the Palestinians, Abbas in fact said that he couldn't ask for less than what the president asserted, even though he had never asserted that issue, that you now, without saying defensible borders, you turn 67 lines into a beginning of negotiations.
That's exactly right, Malcolm. You hit it right on that. I don't have to add anything. I mean, by putting it out there, he says that's where we're starting from. And by saying that's where we're starting from, then Israel's kind of on their back heels in negotiations. Everybody knows they've got to get to the table, have the two parties sit out there and discuss it, and have them come up to an agreement mutually without saying all these preconditions, oh, we're not going to do it unless you stop housing building. I mean, if you want them to stop building housing, make that part of the negotiation.
How did you see Harry Reid's comments? You talked about Ed Koch. Harry Reid, a Democratic leader of the Senate, statement was described as an internal rebuke, as a split. How did you read his comments, which was it was a tremendous speech that night?
It was a tremendous, very pro-Israel speech. He went on for a long time. I believe it was 27 minutes. And you're right, Politico, which is a very influential paper down here in Washington, called it a rebuke, that Harry Reid was rebuking the leader of his own party, Obama. But the truth is that the Democratic Party in the Senate and in the House tends to be very pro-Israel. The Republican Party in the House and Senate is even more pro-Israel. And it would be unusual for them to kind of go against their pro-Israel instincts and suddenly say, okay, we're going to side with this Obama approach.
2 years ago, we're speaking to Dr. Tevi Troy of the Hudson Institute. 2 years ago, Malcolm and I discussed the Obama administration's formula that when you solve the problem with the Palestinians and the dispute with the Israelis, you begin to solve the problems of the whole of the Ummah, the whole of the Arab world. Here we are into the Arab Spring. Does the Obama administration still follow that formula despite all this evidence that no one in Sana'a, in Benghazi, in Daraa are talking about the Palestinians?
You're so right about that, John. It's clear that they don't understand how to talk to the Arab world. I mean, even in the speech that, as I said earlier, was kind of a gut punch to the pro-Israel community, it's not like the Arab world got up and embraced it and said, oh, Obama, you're the leader we've been hoping for. He was criticized by the Arab world for the speech. So, I mean, he just doesn't understand where true friends are. And Bibi said, or Prime Minister Netanyahu said in his speech in Congress, you want a true ally, you want a democracy, you want a country that's going to stick with you, you want a country that's standing with you on the war on terror. Hey, look at us, we're it. Israel is it. And I think so. I still think the Obama administration does not understand how to communicate with the Arab world.
And does the president still follow that formula from 2 years ago, in your opinion, Tevi?
Yeah, I think he does. I think it's sort of the leftist approach in the U.S., the kind of mainstream European approach, this notion that if we solve this Israel-Palestinian crisis, which means impose a solution on the Israelis, then all the Arabs will kind of come greet you with flowers and roses and all that stuff. It just doesn't work that way. I mean, there are a lot of problems, divisions, complications in the Arab world. The Israeli-Arab crisis is one of them, or the conflict is one of them, but it's not everything, and solving that won't solve all the problems in the Arab world.
I wanted to clarify, you mentioned about the support in Congress. I had the privilege of being there and seeing the Republicans and Democrats alike yearning for an opportunity to embrace Israel. We see it now reflected overwhelmingly in polls that follow it. Are you not surprised by the degree? Because I think what essentially they're saying is to be pro-American is to be pro-Israel.
And we have 30 seconds, Tevi. Go ahead.
I was a little surprised by the overwhelming nature of the reaction to Netanyahu, but I was also pleased by it. Like, the American people are very pro-Israel, and polls show that the Republicans tend to be more pro-Israel than the Democrats, but overall both parties very pro-Israel, and I hope it stays that way.
Dr. Tevi Troy of the Hudson Institute. He's also a senior fellow at the Potomac Institute, and he is a former senior White House aide in the George W. Bush administration. Malcolm Hoenlein of the Conference of Presidents of Major American Jewish Organizations. I'm John Batchelor.